Greetings, one and all, to the most cursed, most cringiest corner of the internet. A YouTube channel content creator actively alienating everyone, in both the analog and digital world. Well, welcome and good evening, wonderful dice of all alignments. I am Lunar D8. Keiji-kun, are you alright? Rena, Mian, and Rika-chan were looking after me. Had I fallen to the floor? You surprised us. You suddenly fell down. Were you having a nightmare? You were moaning. Shut it. Quit squeaking at me like that. Eep. I understand it was a tense situation earlier, but didn't you literally scream at me at the top of your lungs a minute ago, telling me to shut up, asshole? I mean, I'm not holding a grudge over it, I'm just saying I feel kind of confused about this change. I do appreciate you were concerned about me when I passed out, but Eep. My friends gave a start and backed away. What? Ren and the others, they exchanged glances, unsure of what to say, and they stood confused for a few moments. What was that your voice, Keiji-kun? What's wrong with my voice? Of course it was. Rena gulped firmly and opened her mouth. For a second, Keiji-kun, your eyes were really scary. Remember in the first two games, especially in the very first one, where Rena and Mian's eyes were doing a thing when Oyashira-sama was possessing them? Now it's the other way around. Now I'm the one making the scary face. Except we don't see that yet because, well, we're still from KHE's perspective. In later games, I think we get to see from other people's perspectives. So we'll get to see, what our character looks like during, well, all of the events of the game. But I don't think we get to see that until like game 5 or 6. I don't know if there will be any more Higurashi games in 2025. Granted, I know people would say, oh, but everything's already done, the story's finished. I know, I'm just saying I'm certainly looking forward to playing the rest of this series. But I'll say this. I have such a high opinion of the developers of this game, as well as of this game itself, of this story, that I want more. Even if it's not necessarily Higurashi itself, I want the developers of this game to make more. And people are like, oh, you don't play Umineko? I'm like, I don't know. I was mainly saying, something brand new so I got to play it like the day it comes out. So, but I don't know. I'm just saying, in general, also I just want more Higurashi content, but I don't know if the developers of this game ever plan to make any more Higurashi. Then again, we're on game 3 out of 10. And technically, other people could be doing a much, much better Let's Play in many reasons. Some because there are many mods that can allow you to have extra scenes and extra graphics. In general, this game is dialed down because of Steam. So, there's probably many, many things we're not getting to see. So, that's unfortunate. But yeah, it does mean at least in later games, maybe we'll get to see that, but I know there's mods and things like that. I don't know if the mods are actually, there's even stuff directly by the developers of the game or not, but you can have extra scenes and extra things going on. But yeah, I'm just saying, in game one where we were seeing Rena and Mion with very scary looking eyes and being all hateful, we're seeing it from the inside out now. Which means in later games we might be able to see things from their perspectives, both when they got possessed by, Oyashiro-sama, and what it's like from their perspective, like right now in this moment. Also, with the issue of her eyes earlier, it could have been an emotional outburst because of the thing going on, or maybe I just hallucinated her yelling that horrible thing at me. I don't know. I don't know what's happening. I may be familiar with Higurashi as a story and a game, but, I don't remember every little detail. And for the most part, there are still many things that would definitely be like, oh, I don't remember this. And it'd be like going back to watch an old anime that you haven't watched in a decade. I will say this, Higurashi, I like the music, I like the voice acting, both in Japanese and in English. I like the art styles, the characters, and the backgrounds, and the story, and the music. Both the music for the anime and the game. I think the music is very, very... Is the word iconic? By iconic I mean it's something that I feel is unique to that game. I guess, like how there's that one riff, Inspire the Dragon, that's reused in multiple tracks in different ways that sounds unique each way, but you could definitely tell. Or like how Mario or Sonic's music, or Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest, where it's like it's music that's defines it, where you're like, there's a set feeling and vibe and just type of style, to where like Higurashi music basically is like its own genre. Same as like there'd be Mario music, or like what about Zelda music? Like, is there something that sets all of Zelda music? Like if you took all the music, especially of the older Zelda games, put it together, is there something that sets that game's music apart from other video games or other types of music? I'm just saying, I'm a big fan of the music in this game, especially what we're listening to. Even though right now it's just the sound of silence. For a second, Kiichi-kun, your eyes are really scary. My eyes. Probably just a trick of the light. Don't waste my time. I'm not mistaken. I've never seen those kind of eyes before. Again, it's very odd, because I remember in the first game, Mion and Rena were the ones with those scary looking eyes yelling at and threatening me. And now it's the other way around. And of course, in later games, we get to see things from other people's perspectives. So, when they're making the scary faces, I'll be seeing it from their perspective of what was going on inside their heads at the time. And right now, when we get to the parts of the future games, that's this exact moment from their perspectives, I'll get to see what Kiichi looks like at that moment. But it could be that those eyes are just what happens when you're being possessed by Oyashiro-sama, or when the Hinamizawa syndrome hits. What were these guys talking about? They've all been too scared of me lately. You are Kiichi Mabara-kun, right? What do you mean, lately? In what way have they been... I'm confused. You are Kiichi Mabara-kun, right? What was Rena saying? Who else do I look like except Keiichi Mabura? The look I gave her seemed to speak quite eloquently to those irritated thoughts. She understood and quickly apologized. I'm sorry. Don't worry about it. Rika, you want to chime in on your opinion? Or did you leave with Satoko? Well, no, Rika was supposed to watch over me, and they said that at the start of this. So, also, is Chie sensing the rest of the students not there? Emergency. You have new tips. 1,500 seconds. Reached an epiphany. June 18, 1983. Abuse issues regarding Satoko Hojo. We propose that Satoko Hojo must be taken into immediate custody based on the items below. Family situation. Life with adoptive father who recently returned to Himizawa has already turned disastrous, and she is currently subject to unendurable physical and mental abuse from the father. 2. Child Consultation Center's response. A child probation officer was dispatched yesterday, on the 17th, from the Prefecture Welfare Office, but because of the 77 case, changed to continued coaching and cautionary action. Unfortunately, the consultation office head does not properly understand the situation. Status of concerned child. Child already appears to be suffering from an outbreak of something close to neurosis or manic depression. If her unstable pubescent mind is negatively stimulated by stress, it will put her development of a healthy body and mind at risk. This cannot be allowed to continue from a humane standpoint. Allegations made to the family court. We propose, based on the above items, that Satoko Hojo should immediately be taken into protective custody. She should be secured temporarily under the emergency allegations to the family court order under Article 28. We request emergency coordination between all related agencies. D2-3, number 44. Fukujisho, number 44, 1977. Child name Satoko Hojo. Hinamizawa Village, Shishibone. Consultation circumstances. Telephone SOS from child of child abuse. Abuse situation. Child claims she's being physically abused by her adoptive father. Family structure. Adoptive father, real mother, older brother, child in question. Note: adoptive father, real mother. The child is a daughter of the mother's previous husband. Center's response. On the day of the child's telephone consultation, the child center called the child's school and asked of her situation. On that day, the child welfare officer on duty visited the child's house and conducted an interview. The adoptive father sincerely listened to instruction and agreed to take child raising workshops in the city from now on. As part of the suggested coaching, the center will continue to observe the situation. Other notes. As a result of numerous counseling sessions at the city's education consultation office regarding the child, we learned that there was a high possibility that to cause the child's excessive distrust toward her adoptive father a result of lack of communication. The abuse she claimed hadn't actually taken place. She had made a false report to distance herself from adoptive father. Below is a note written in pencil by the person on duty at the time. The problem appeared to be more with the daughter. Chief Investigator F of the city's education consultation office said that most of her stories of abuse were likely fabrications. They decided to shift the focus of their coaching to the child. Be cautious not to take everything the child says as truth. Mion and the others, having to set up for the Watanagashi festival or something, invited me along, but I refused. Of course I did. How could they be taking it easy and setting up for a festival in this situation? Mion had a lot of nerve. First thing I did when I got back was take a shower. Not because I wanted to wash off sweat. It was because I wanted to be even calmer. We must be calm when we do the Lord's work. I already understood this, but killing that man would be so very easy. The really hard thing would be not getting arrested for it, so we can get our peaceful days back. As I thought about it, I realized it wasn't easy. Japan's police force have the highest arrest rate in the world. I would need to deceitfully pull off the perfect crime, and it couldn't be a half-hearted attempt. Still, it wasn't 100%. Even the best police force in the world couldn't have a 100% arrest rate. I've read a lot of articles on trials with people brought up on false charges. They do a lot to determine whether they really were false accusations, but figure out who the real criminal was is usually out of the question. And that meant perfect crimes did exist. In fact, perfect crimes were sort of like works of art. They could even be respected and revered. You just had to look at the inundation of mystery novels everywhere throughout history. They dealt with all sorts of difficult-to-solve incidents involving secret rooms and alibis and stuff, but they all wanted to show one thing. They all wanted to show the beauty of a perfect crime. There was something divine in the flawlessness of the word perfect. Yes, perfect crimes were skills of the gods. And in that sense, the serial freak death instance we're calling the curse of Oyashiro-sama, I understood they must have been the works of the gods. Each one appeared to have been resolved, but they couldn't stop it from happening every year. Yeah, skills belonging only to gods. Those are perfect crimes. And I would be setting up my own perfect crime before Oyashiro-sama's series of perfect crimes 4 years in the running. If I were to put it boldly, I was challenging a god. Foolhardiness be needed to make the decision. But I needed to be calm, cool, colder than ice to put that plan together. Really now, I don't think we're challenging Oyashiro-sama. We're simply doing exactly as Oyashiro Jesus-sama would want us to do. Kill him like a flame, but as systematic as ice. Starting now, I need to retain both of those ideas within me. Modeling my crime after a mystery novel wasn't actually a bad thing to focus on. Sometimes kidnappings involving disturbing original methods that made it into the newspaper were used as a basis for novels. After the person was arrested, stuff like that made it into the news. Day and night for a long time, mystery novel authors polished and refined their most fantastic artistic crimes. Imitating that could be a shortcut to planning the perfect crime in a short period of time. Of course, I haven't read enough mystery novels to act all high and mighty about them. The one who really liked mystery novels was my mom. She'd read every well-known mystery novel from overseas, from past and present. Every time she watched mystery shows, she would always criticize them as having cheap tricks or being poorly thought out. I wonder what the perfect crime would mean to her. What do I think of the most well-done perfect crime in all mystery novels I've read is, yeah, well, you read quite a lot of them, right? I figured you might know a lot about them. It's more fun to read them to find out. If I told you all the tricks right off the bat, they'd be no fun anymore. It wasn't like I was asking for my own amusement. She was deflecting the question. So I would somehow butter her up first and draw out an answer. Okay, we're having a whole hypothetical discussion in our head based on what we're expecting. We haven't actually gone to speak to our mother yet. Of course, Agatha Christie's, and there were none as the top recommendation. And Murder on the Orient Express used some great bold tricks. Two, of course, I didn't see it coming at all. I didn't want to know which novels you liked. I wanted to know about the trick that made you most surprised. Or did we? I don't know. If it was really a perfect trick, the detectives wouldn't be able to solve the case, though. That was true. Then there'd be no point. Mystery novels are enjoyable because of the process of mysteries getting solved. If it was unsolvable, it would make a very good topic for the novel. I get it. Yeah, you're right. The main character can't solve it. It wouldn't be much of a story, huh? Was I being too simplistic? Are we having this conversation? A mystery novel is basically a game. They were written so that you could get to the goals, so that you could solve them. But I couldn't use something so optimistic. It needed to be the be-all, end-all of tricks so that we could, without a doubt, return to our old lives. By the way, Kiichi, do you understand that truly perfect crimes don't even become stories? Mom looked at me intellectually and grinned impishly. I'd never gotten to read it, but apparently one time, a long time ago, Mom had written her own mystery novel and submitted it for some mystery novel award. Apparently she was really into it. Don't even become stories? What does that mean? Keiichi, what are the essential parts of a story? A beginning, a middle, and an end? Correct. The beginning, of course, is especially important. If there is no beginning, then the story never starts. Well, yeah, if nothing happened, nothing would begin. Right. Nothing happens, so there wouldn't even be an incident. Detectives wouldn't be called, so there wouldn't be a mystery. There would be no mystery, so there would be no solution. In other words, it would be ultimate perfect crime. Wait a second. Could you explain that again? My mom just told me something absurd. And she was saying it so smoothly, too, so I kind of tuned her out. But she said something extremely important just now. It's not really that difficult to understand. The incident just has to never come to light, that's all. Just has to never come to light? For example, how about this? Say there's an old man living deep in the forest nobody goes into. And one day, that old man gets killed by an axe. And let's say the criminal was the old man's son. He went to the old man's house and they were drinking together, but they got into a fight and he killed him. What an extremely cheap plot. It was an impulsive crime without a bit of planning. It was pretty far from a perfect crime. But Kiichi, the house was really, really deep in the forest. So deep in the mountains that nobody would ever go out that far. Then his son would go back to town and say that the old man was doing fine. What about that as a perfect crime? Kiichi, this incident would only begin when it was found out that the old man was killed. If nobody ever visited the old man's house after that, the beginning would never occur. The beginning would never occur. So basically the story wouldn't start. The incident wouldn't come to light and they wouldn't call in detectives. And nobody would be suspicious in the first place, so there'd be no mystery. They'd think the old man was still living by himself deep in the forest. And the old man's face would appear in the sky, and that would be it. Something like that, you know? That's amazing. That's a pretty great trick. But it wouldn't be a novel. Mystery novels are for entertainment, after all. They can't be instruction manuals for perfect crimes. I was trying hard and cheerfully to fool her, but inside I was excited. Special tools, strange geography, mysterious drugs, traps involving a huge sums of cash, none of them were needed for perfect crimes. The important thing was that there wasn't a beginning. As long as the incident didn't come to light, it would be fine. Speaking broadly, if I could kill him without anyone finding out, and dispose of the corpse somewhere no one could find, it would basically already be a perfect crime. Of course, if someone ended up vanished one day all of a sudden, people would get suspicious. But that didn't apply to this man because he's already disappeared before, and Oyashiro-sama. Last year, after their aunt he ran away from the village in fear of Oyashiro-sama. When the night of Tatarigoroshi came around again, everyone would have to think that he ran away again in fear. I mean, he had been living with a lover of his in town. No matter what it felt like when he vanished, no one would be suspicious. Unfortunately, if he's so fucking paranoid with Tatarigoroshi, he's going to be super hyper vigilant, especially that day of all. So it might be kind of hard to get the drop on him. People hated him, after all. No one would care where he went if he disappeared. Actually, the problem is, in this situation, if the child welfare people are actually coming to actually save Satoko, which means at this point we really don't have to do anything, and it will solve itself. Unfortunately, we are taking matters in our own hand, and it's bad. So, the issue is this. They will want to prosecute him. I mean, one, in addition to saving Satoko, they'll want to prosecute him. In order to do that, they got to find him, which means they'll be looking for him. Plus, if they don't find him, not only is the issue they can't prosecute him, But it also means he could always show up at some point and be a threat to Satoko, which means they would be looking for him in order to protect Satoko in case he ever just comes back. When I thought about it like that, it got easier and easier to imagine killing him. There was no point in thinking inside my house anymore. I left, getting my bike out of the garage. For now, it didn't matter where I was going. I just rode through the wind, trying to calm my excitement by feeling the cool air on my body. Where I'd kill him, how I'd do it, what time, and how to dispose of the corpse. If I just had those 4 things, I could get a good plan going. I was so surprised at how little there was to decide that I shivered. I'd been completely prepared to build this humongous plan over a really long period of time, but if I could just get these little things in order, I could put it into motion. Today was Saturday. I would have to kill him the night of the Tatarigoroshi, so as long as I was standing in for Oyashiro-sama, I had 24 hours remaining. Satoko, just hang on for 24 more hours. I can't even imagine having to suffer through even more. But please, hold out for a little longer. I know you can't even last another second. I know that. But please just hold out. Your Nini will save you for sure. Outside, it was still early enough for the cicadas to be crying. Early afternoon. Evening was still a long way off. I looked at the sky at some point. It had gotten cloudy. Come to think of it, as I left the house, I had heard on the TV that the weather forecast was calling for a chance of rain on Sunday. The sky was the color of lead. If I heard a little bit of thunder, I'd definitely have expected a sudden evening shower. My first destination was school. Before explaining why I was going there, I needed to explain what method for killing that man I had decided upon. I decided that the most suitable death, the one I needed to give him, was the same as last year's curse, the same as the punishment their aunt had received, being beaten to death. Wouldn't beating him to death be somewhat unreliable? You may think that stabbing him with a blade would be more reliable, but this was something I had chosen after a lot of thought. You just need to think realistically. The law had prohibited carrying any blades longer than 10 centimeters, I think. So the blades available to me, though long enough, were limited to things shorter than a ruler. You can probably understand how tricky it would be with such a short reach, to go up against an opponent that might fight back. In that case, using a weapon with reach would be far more effective. It might not have the same precision, but you just had to hit the guy until you killed him. Both options resulted in death. With that settled, what is the weapon with the most terrifying force behind it that is also easy to carry around? By this point, you should immediately think of a metal baseball bat. I don't need to explain how terrifying a metal baseball bat can be as a weapon. Of special note is the fact that you can carry one around broad daylight and not be thought of as suspicious. And here's the thing. That stuff is more dangerous than people, acknowledge. Because at the end of the day is this. Even a child swinging a metal baseball bat can easily kill a fucking 6.5 foot tall bodybuilder. Just depends on where you hit. But a blow to the head, even with that much force, I mean, let's be clear. If, Macaulay Culkin were to, swing a baseball bat and hit, I don't know, Steven Seagal in the back of the head, Steven Seagal would die. No matter how much of a, martial artist he is. Simply put, a lot of people take a lot of that shit for granted. But I mean, in the Home Alone movies, I mean, most of that stuff that happened to Harry and Marv in both the movies should have killed them a dozen times over. Most of that stuff should have killed them. Or at least would have caused serious, permanent, long-term damage. But yeah. I mean, as long as you're not hitting someone with a wiffle bat, a metal or even a wooden bat are lethal weapons. Even against someone much stronger than you. Even someone double your size. Just those 2 points would have to be enough to choose a metal bat for my weapon. But there was one more reason, for choosing a metal bat in particular. I will speak about it later. After school that Saturday, my classmates were still having fun, playing in the schoolyard. I could show up there and it would be the same as always, so nobody would think I'm suspicious. Getting my hands on the weapon without looking suspicious was actually a factor I couldn't ignore. I didn't normally play baseball, so if I went to the sports store looking for a metal bat, it would definitely be suspicious. I can't let there be a beginning to the story. So, I needed to be really careful even about that. That left school. At a location at which my appearance wouldn't be suspicious, I would require the weapon. I checked inside the classroom, through the window, but of course there was nobody there. The only students who would stay in there were me and the others, when doing club activities. Without us, the classroom after school was just an empty, unused room. Without glancing around nervously, as if I'd just gone to get something I'd forgotten, I casually went into the entrance. It looked like the teacher was busy with paperwork in the teacher's lounge. I didn't see her in the hallway. Naturally, yet quickly as a shadow, I entered the classroom. The empty room was full of a strange, stagnant air that you couldn't feel normally. An empty classroom with nobody here. Maybe while no one was around, the desks creep out of their own accord, licking the floors clean of dirt. If I suddenly stepped into a place like that, would the desks, in their surprise, fly at me, crush my bones, and eat me alive? That's ridiculous. I felt regret at wasting valuable time thinking on stupid delusions. The students' lockers were lined up at the back of the classroom. The one I was looking for wasn't my own. It was a forbidden locker, one I had accidentally discovered one day. Here it is, Hojo. This has to be it. If one person has one locker, then why would only Satoko have two? I'd made a fuss about it once. After that I learned it was Satoshi's locker, and he had the same last name as her. But of course, even though it was a locker for a student no longer here, looking inside it was still a shameless act. But one time I let my curiosity get the better of me and took a peek inside. Inside it was an average and worthless at the time. I hadn't been interested. And so until now I'd forgotten what had been in it. But now that I dare say it awakened, I remembered the thing that had been there. Scrape. I opened the locker and a stench of mold and sweat wafted out. Like a gym storehouse that hadn't been cleaned in weeks. My face puckered at the stench, but I looked for it. Yes. Satoshi was on Coach's baseball team. Inside the locker was a Hinamizawa fighter's uniform and it. The one Satoshi used. The metal bat. Yes. This was the reason I wanted to choose this bat. This murder would be carried out by me, but this wasn't originally my role. It was Satoshi's. But I would stand in for him and call myself Satoko's Nini. It was one of the rules for standing in for him. You have to follow the rules. I reached for the metal bat and grasped it firmly and felt the power of Christ. And soon Tepe will feel the power of Christ through this metal baseball bat. It was light, and yet its tip had enough heft in it, enough to easily imagine the horror of our body downfall by might. Satoshi, I'll give you one last chance to save your sister. Lend me your strength. You're a coward, but I will stand in for you. So if you still care even a little bit about her, you will lend me your strength. There is no more suitable weapon in the world for putting that man to death than your bat. Now, I just need to figure out where to hide it. Tomorrow, before the act, I would just stop by the school and grab it, because I couldn't ignore the possibility somebody would see me bring it home. I didn't think it was strange, but I left it here there wouldn't be a problem. Plus, tomorrow was Sunday. And all that, it was the day of the biggest festival in the whole village. Nobody would be coming to school. I left out the entrance and went to a construction vehicle parked nearby. We'd been warned by our teacher not to touch it, just for laughs, so none of the kids would come near the vehicle either. They wouldn't, because if she found out they touched it, they'd be in huge trouble. I quietly hid it in the shadow of the vehicle. The chances of someone operating the vehicle tomorrow were slim to none, because tomorrow was Sunday. Government workers had the day off. And, from what my classmates had said, the thing had been left here for years now. Machines that haven't been moved in years, you can't just suddenly start them up again. So I was almost definitively fine in this case. The sunlight was piercingly hot. My head grew faint for a moment. Had the heat been this harsh for the entire day? A moment of dulled thoughts like this was a moment of carelessness. I gave myself a couple hits in the head, then looked around warily. Okay, next, how to dispose of the corpse. Oyashiro-sama provides a way. Disposing of the corpse. The ultimate way not to create a beginning was to not let the corpse be found. It was even more important than killing him. Thinking on it vaguely, the first thing that came to mind was the swamp. Onagafuchi. The dreadful bottomless swamp revered even now. That appeared in the legends of Onagafushi village. Yes, the swamp called Onagafushi was here first, and then the village took its name to become Onagafushi village. In other words, this swamp was the origin of Onagafushi village. No one, no matter who it was, would float back to the surface of this bottomless swamp. Everyone would be swallowed down into the land of the demons below the earth. That was how the stories went. If I was trying to copy Oyashiro-sama's curse, then I felt that theory demanded I discard the remains and the weapon into the swamp. But they may have said it's bottomless, but I didn't actually know. And people say large creatures like humans produce a lot of gas when they rot, granting a lot of buoyancy. It was why using a fairly heavy objects to hold the people down didn't work. Come to think of it, with the curse of the year before, Rika-chan's mother drowned herself in this swamp. And the criminal behind the dismemberment that went missing the year of the first curse too, it was rumored he tried to discard the body in the swamp and accidentally drowned in it. I never heard of the corpse coming back up, or them finding it though. Then shouldn't I choose to discard the corpse there too? I could discard the weapon there, and then, for example, if her uncle came out on a motorcycle and attacked, it would be convenient to get rid of the bike too. I knew that Sato's uncle generally used a motorcycle for transportation, but as for the corpse... After a lot of worrying, I decided not to discard the corpse in the swamp. The drowning, suicide, and accident were both rumors. Nobody knew if they'd actually happened. There were no lack of false rumors about the drowning suicide anyway, and it was possible the murderer hadn't drowned there and was still on the run. That meant no one had ever confirmed a corpse being dropped in there and then not coming back up. Then what would I do with the body? How often is anyone even checking the swamp? Would it even matter if it floated back up? I thought it might be interesting to go with the first incident, cut him into pieces and item. That's time-consuming, though. But the preparation and work for dismembering a human body would be difficult given the amount of time I had. Exactly. With that out of the question, I rode to the conclusion to go with the more orthodox measure of burying the body. Then where would I bury it? Was the sudden question related to where I would kill him? Of course, I wanted to keep my time and proximity to the body at a minimum. With that in mind, I went to dig a hole to dump the body in beforehand, and to make the location of the act and hole close together. Do we even have a shovel? The choice of where to plan the crime, that I needed to be absolutely careful and thorough with. It had to be somewhere nobody would witness it, and a place with hiding places for a sneak attack. Could dig a hole for the body right there. I go over the possibilities in my head of the various destinations her uncle would head to from Sato's house. I imagine a map of the area in my head. And then I found a place that fulfilled those conditions so easily it was almost unbelievable. A bit of the back road that went through the woods. I didn't think her uncle would go deeper into the mountains of Yagoichi on a whim. If he was going somewhere, he'd pass through the woods first, and nobody used this back way unless they had something to do at Sato's house. or one of the two other places. This path was fantastically ideal, as few people used it. I would wait for him in these woods. Would an ambush actually be possible? I went into the trees and tried really hiding myself in a few places. It was extremely quiet. My senses could be sharpened here to their maximum amount. I didn't know when he'd come, but I'd wait right here for Satoko's uncle. I actually had some trouble coming to that decision. The decision arose of whether I should somehow call the man out. Was there a risk I'd be taking by luring him there? The man made Satoko do all the shopping and errands. He seldom left on his own business. He wouldn't leave unless I worked out a plan to force him to, would he? That was the question. Tomorrow was the Tatarigoroshi festival. Would he go out for the festival, or would he stay inside? If he stayed inside, how would I drag him out of his house? That's right. Wouldn't he make Satoko go to the festival? Satoko would go to the festival. Meanwhile, I would call the man. This is Okonomiya Police Station. We have the young lady from your house. Could you come to pick her up immediately? It didn't even have to be the police. This is the clinic. The young lady from your house has been injured. Please come and pick her up. Yes, that would work too. If I claimed to be the police in the hospital, told him to come and then hung up on him, he'd rush there trying to figure out what was going on, wouldn't he? And just the other day, he was visited by a probation officer. He wouldn't suddenly grumble about having to get his niece and not go. It would look like child neglect. The man had no skills useful around the house. Satoko, his slave, was an essential part of his daily life. Conclusion: if he went out to the festival, I would attack him here on his way, there or back. If he didn't, I would lure him out by phone. If luring him out by phone was my first step, I needed to be sure Satoko would go to the festival leaving the house. It would be convenient if I could make Mion take Satoko to the festival. She said her aunt was a district welfare officer, in other words, an ally to the probation officer. If I somehow incited Mion to take Satoko to the festival with her, well, being who she was, she'd use that fact and get her there. Satoko should just take a break and have fun at the festival with everyone. She should have a good time and reminisce on our formal, peaceful days. And when she went home, everything would be over. Yeah, that would be the best outcome. With that decided, I needed to dig a hole somewhere in the woods to hide the body, so it wouldn't stand out, so it wouldn't be found. Someplace nobody would see me while I was completely exposed as I buried the corpse. I had wanted it to be close to the scene of the crime, but it naturally grew farther away. Deep in the bosom of the Black Forest, the voices of the Higurashi were the only sounds here informing that people shouldn't indiscreetly set foot in this place. Digging a hole, huh? Digging a hole with so many tree roots crawling around the ground would be far more difficult than I'd envisioned. I stuck a gardening spade out here in my bag, but that wouldn't be enough. Still, as I looked into various approaches, I managed to find a place I could dig into. Tomorrow I'd bring a real shovel from the storeroom at home. I'd manage with that. I wondered how big a hole would have to be to fit a human all the way into it. I'd probably have to dig a pretty deep down, but if I was slipshod in these efforts, I'd let a beginning occur. I absolutely couldn't allow that. Use any amount of time you need to. I mustn't spare any effort to utterly erase him. I glanced at my wristwatch. It was a little past 6. This was probably all I was going to get done here for today. I really wanted to dig the hole in advance tonight, even if it got dark out, but Mion would be upset if I stayed out that late. Mom, it wouldn't be good to come off as suspicious to my parents. I needed to go back home and give Mion a call soon. I needed to get her to promise to take Satoko, to take her by tonight. After that, today would be done. Done. Would it be, though? Was this really everything I could do to prepare right now? I decided where to kill him. I decided how to kill him. I decided, of course, how to dispose of the body. I didn't decide on a time. but I would play that by ear. I didn't have a way to decide that. Was that really all? Was this really all right? Have I overlooked anything? Would this really go how I planned? After all this, worries started welling up one after the other. It was only natural I'd be anxious. This would be the first and last big job of my lifetime. I could not allow failure, and I had no experience as this was my first time. I didn't have the know-how, the knack, so it was only natural I'd be anxious. The dark clouds of unease told me doing nothing would be the easiest way, a truly pathetic suggestion this late in the game. Have you forgotten how miserable Satoko looked? From the outside it may have looked like I was resolute, but deep in my heart my knees were shaking loudly. I've never actually won a single fight to my satisfaction. Could I really kill someone? I may have been planning an ambush, but my enemy was large and far older than me. He had a scary face, and he looked like he was well accustomed to fighting. Could I have all the pieces before and after the murder perfectly planned? But was the actual murder the most important part? What unsettled me the most? All my preparations, all my perfectly concealed machinations. If I didn't successfully murder him, they amounted to nothing. Damn it. After coming this far, you're pathetic, Keiichi Mabara. If you start to have these kinds of second thoughts, your ulterior motive will be obvious. Let's go home. Go home and calm your mind. Tomorrow will be a juncture in your life. The likes of which graduation, employment, marriage, and childbirth couldn't hold a candle to. A day of murder. To kill someone for someone else's sake. With that day behind us, we would take it back again. Those mild, spring-like days we never thought would stop. Those safe, peaceful, fun times. I pedaled my bicycle hard to get back home. I felt somehow unsteady, like my body and soul weren't in alignment. A subtle shift between where the tips of my hands and feet really were and where I felt them to be. My vision was a little distant and narrow, as if the great barrier I risked my future life on had nothing to do with me, an unreal sensation. How could I put it? Everything was so far away. Fine. Feel your unease permeate you, Keiichi Mabara, if that will turn your timidity into meticulousness and allow you to act with greater caution. Keiichi Mabara. He is exacting, methodical, and worst of all, patient. Then it's actually an important emotion to feel. This feeling I had never went away that night. It was the first time I'd be calling Neon's house. I searched for it in the phone book the school gave me, then dialed a short phone number, the kind unique to remote places. It was around dinner time.